YouTube, how does Ducky doing? Delfino's here, and what I got for you today is my Season 5.5 Marvel Rivals tier list. Now, just like any tier list on my channel, left to right order on the tiers do not matter to me. I just place them in the S, A, B, C, D categories, etc. And also, for the most part, tier lists are opinion-based and superly biased, so my opinions and tier lists might be separate from your guys's, which again is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you like what you see or you just like the content in general, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and of course, I'll catch you in the next one. But let's go ahead and get started with our Vanguard section. Also, I try to do my best to explain each reason of why I put characters in specific tiers, but back to the video. So kicking off our Vanguard section, we have none other than Doctor Strange. Now, looking at the patch notes, Doctor Strange didn't really receive any changes between Season 5 and Season 5.5. However, the meta has shifted greatly to even stronger triple strategies where Magneto, Emma Frost, characters like Angela and Groot are more highly prioritized than Doctor Strange. For right now, I'm going to be putting Doctor Strange on, relatively in the middle. I think B is a safe spot for right now. And of course, we'll move him around later on. Moving down this list, we have Hulk. Now, Hulk didn't receive any changes between Season 5 and Season 5.5. But again, we have characters like Angela, Emma Frost, other off-tanks like Captain America that just outshine Hulk currently. Now, I'm not saying Hulk is, garbage or he's terrible. I think all of the characters are good in their own, respective categories. But the thing is, metas change, characters get pushed out of the meta, and even if you are a very, very good Hulk player, you're still gonna have a better time on a character like Angela or Emma Frost. I think there's just way too many factors that shut down Hulk, so Hulk is definitely going to be on the lower spectrum of my tier list for now. Moving on, we have Captain America. Now, Captain America, again, he did not receive any changes between Season 5 and Season 5.5. I think he's still one of those Vanguards that truly shine on his off-tank role, or just being an annoyance, being a big pressure and playmaker. So I think sticking him in the A category is fine for now, and of course we can move him around accordingly. Then we go to Groot. Now, Groot has received some love in Season 5. Between Season 5 and Season 5.5, there wasn't really any changes. However, I think Groot is very good. Some may argue S tier, some others may argue A tier. Typically, when I think of S tier categories heroes, I think of best in slot or BIS, whatever you want to describe it. So I think putting him in A is fine. Again, left to right doesn't matter for me when I make tier lists, and I think S is, well, best in slot type of characters. On we come to Magneto. Yet again, Magneto remains untouched from Season 0 to pretty much Season 5.5. They move around his numbers a little bit here and there, but for the most part in Season 5, or Season 5.5, excuse me, he's still probably the best character in the game in terms of Vanguards. Maybe Emma Frost is up there too, but for right now, I'm putting him in the S category because he's pretty much versatile and viable in a lot of different of the team compositions that are so prevalent currently in the meta. So I think sitting him in the S tier category is fine for now. Then moving on to our next Vanguard, we have none other than Penny Parker. Again, Penny Parker received some love in Season 5 or 4.5 when she got the changes to her abilities where she does healing now in her spider webs, and I think putting her in B category is fine. I think she can be played in different scenarios. She might not be the best all the time, but she is a rather good character, which is kind of crazy to say because she, honestly, even though having a high win rate, she was on the lower end of characters picked. Moving on, we come to Thor, who's next on this list. Thor, he is a weird character. He's a little bit interesting. He's more of a duelist rather than a Vanguard. Now, I'm not saying that is certainly true. He can definitely have some sort of mitigation, but in terms of having a shield for his team, not the most useful. But again, the character does do some decent amount of damage. I wouldn't necessarily use the worst tank in the world, but I think we can put him in the C tier. And it's kind of crazy to me to be putting Thor above Hulk. On down our list, we come to Venom. Again, I believe Venom didn't receive any changes in Season 5.5. He did not, in fact. And I definitely see the meta shifting kind of out of him because while he does provide that healing reduction with his ultimate, or the anti-hero, however you want to describe it, Gambit is in the game. Gambit can cleanse those effects, so he isn't necessarily the biggest playmaker anymore. He still can do a ton of damage. He can still do a ton of jobs. But I think the character that does his job better is a character like Angela. more utility, more versatility, and just easier to pick off targets. So I think putting Venom in B tier for now is perfectly fine. Moving from Venom, we come to the Thing. Now, Thing did, get a massive buff back in Season 5, but in Season 5.5, they're increasing his Stone Haymaker bonus damage equal to the enemy's max health per hit from 8 to 10, and they're increasing the duration of the lingering anti-mobility field after Yancey's recharge from 3 to 5 seconds, meaning this character is going to be a little bit more annoying to deal with than what he previously was. That being said, though, I don't think he is an insanely good Vanguard, but I still think he is up there, in fact. So I'm going to be putting him in C, but when it comes to a lot of these characters, they're all useful in different ways, and they're all versatile, meaning they could be played in different scenarios, so they're super situational based. Some people might have Penny Parker higher because they might be playing a defensive sided comp, so they see the value in Penny. That's why we have these tier lists. Of course, everything can move around and shift. Going from the Thing, we come to Emma Frost. Emma Frost got an increase of her base health from 550 HP to 600. They also removed the Team Up Anchor 100 bonus health, but she still has the same damage. She still relatively has the same amount of health. She is still a nuisance to deal with, still a very strong contender for one of the best Vanguards in the game. I mean, I would put her A. I think putting her A is fine, but in terms of power rankings, I would put her like a top because I want BIS, so best in slot, so I won't completely fill up the S tier category unless those characters are absolutely needed to be in that spot. Then we come to Angela. I think Angela is a very good Vanguard. She's great at initiating for fights. She's great at picking off enemies. She's like your Wolverine, but as a Vanguard. Super situational character. Not necessarily situational, but just extremely useful in a lot of different scenarios. So super versatile. So I think we're going to be putting her A. She didn't receive any changes from 5.5 and 5, but the character still remains highly, in my high regard. It does take a fair amount of skill to get good with, but the character is very good. Then from there, we go to Rogue. Rogue is one of those characters, to me, that I'm not saying is like Daredevil, but is in one of those spots where it's going to take some time for people to understand and really get the most amount of damage out of this character. The character can be good in a lot of different situations. I don't think the character is absolutely insane like a Daredevil, like a Emma Frost on release. I think it's going to take some time for people to get extremely good with her. Now, I'm going to put her in the middle, in the B tier category, and before people type in the comments, oh, that it needs to be higher, it needs to be lower, there's not enough data, and not enough, really people showing everything this character has to offer, so I think putting her in B in the middle is perfectly safe and fine. But there you have it. That is my Vanguard tier list for Season 5.5. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I always love to hear your opinions, what you guys have to say. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you agree, disagree? Whatever it may be. This is kind of what we're working with for right now. Let's go ahead and look at our Duelist. What do we have to offer? Black Panther, unfortunately, has to be in the F tier category. The character is just not there. He has received too much hate, too many nerfs. So definitely not one of the better characters in my opinion as of right now. Hopefully eventually he'll receive some more love so he can be viable again. But until then, we'll have to wait. Black Widow, I think Black Widow is a very good character. I think there is only a couple or a handful of people that can perform extremely well with this character. Again, you need Mantis on your team to really have the character shine. And with that being said, I think the character is placed on the lower end of the spectrum because not a lot of people know how to fully utilize her and get the most amount of value. So I think in terms of all ELO on average, could be on the lower end of the tier list. But moving on, we come to Hawkeye. Hawkeye is kind of in the similar boat as Black Widow. I wouldn't say as bad as Black Widow, but is one of those characters that, if dived properly, can pretty much get 0 to little impact. You just have that Captain America or an Angela rolling the Hawkeye. Yes, he can one-tap headshot people from medium to long range. Yes, he can be rather annoying to deal with, but there's this better options for duelists out there that can easily shut down a Hawkeye. Take, for example, Phoenix, Hela. Those characters can easily shut down a Hawkeye by maintaining range and just bowling him out of certain areas. With that being said, I think he sits around the C tier category. Not necessarily the worst duelist currently in the game, but not necessarily the best. So C tier is perfectly fine for me. Moving on, we come to Hela. Hela has to be S tier. The character is still just one of the strongest. I think has been a character that has been strong since season 0 and even in the beta, so it's kind of crazy that this character still remains at the top. Moving on, we come to Iron Fist. I think Iron Fist is, relatively good. I think he has a lot of, chances to truly shine. I think the buffs a few seasons ago and the previous season has really let this character excel and perform a lot better than most. So I think I'm actually going to be confident putting him in the B tier category. I think that's fine. For Iron Man, they just don't like this character. I'm not really sure. Probably has set around the F tier. Yes, some people might be able to get some usefulness out of him, but for the most part, the majority of the player base, he's not the same as he was when he had Gamma and was one of those super strong duelists. So F tier is where he's going to be having to sit for season 5.5 currently. Moving on, we come to Magic. Now, Magic is one of those interesting characters that received some buffs that made the character extremely good with the Doctor Strange team up, but since has kind of changed. She just doesn't get the same amount of value as she used to do. There's this other duelist that just kind of do her job, but a lot better. Think about a character like Daredevil, for example. The character just gets too much value, and it's kind of the similar character style or similar build as Magic, going in, brawling around, being a nuisance, doing whatever you want. That's kind of what Daredevil does, but just way better. I don't think Magic is one of the worst duelists in the entire game, but I think she's on my lower end of this currently in this season. Moving on, we come to Moon Knight. Moon Knight is honestly alright. He's not terrible, he's not good, but he's just alright. I don't think he's way up, in A territory. I think we're thinking more around the C tier. Again, this character is very useful if you're trying to break a spawn hold, but I think putting him C tier is fine, especially when you have characters like Angela and Groot being played a lot more. Having the Groot Knight or the Angela plus Moon Knight combo is just way too good to pass up on. Moving on, we come to Namor. Now, Namor is good when he has Hela. Namor without Hela can be rather difficult to get a ton of value out, but I think when he has Hela on the field, the team up is good enough to provide him to be putting up in the higher tiers. A Namor without Hela is not good. A Hela without Namor is perfectly fine. That's why Namor is on the lower end of my tier list, because you would just play Hela instead. Like, if Hela's banned, there's no real reason to play Namor. But if Hela's up, yeah, go ahead, play Namor. But it's just kind of how I see it. Then we come to Punisher. Once the king of duelists for a little bit in the seasons, back in the beta as well. Definitely no longer the case. He sits on the lower end of my tier list because he does have better characters to deal with. The shutdown didn't receive any real changes from season. He received a little bit. They increased his damage per hit from 19 to 20. So he's a little bit better, but he's still kind of in a spectrum where he's just not as good as he once was. Then moving on, we come to Spider-Man, or Psylocke. Holy. So Psylocke, I think Psylocke is a very good character still. I think we're still seeing A tier category. The character is still extremely strong, especially with some of the changes that she got. They increased the energy cost of Dance with the Butterfly, her ultimate ability, from 2,800 to 3,400. So it takes longer to get her ultimate, but she can still one-shot people. Doesn't really matter. The character is still phenomenal, so A S tier category, perfectly fine for myself. Then we're looking at Spider-Man. Spider-Man is still one of those characters that remains, he needs a little bit more love to get a ton of use out of. You're not going to see him in super high ranks unless you're that one-trick player. Yes, he can dominate the lower lobbies, and you might see him banned in your lower lobbies, but for the most part, he's a rather easy character to shut down. You have a giant toolkit of what you can use to shut down a character like Spider-Man. Then moving on, we have Squirrel Girl. People can comment what they want. I don't think Squirrel Girl is in a good position. The character is just lackluster in comparison to a lot of the other duelists in the entire game, because you have characters with CC that just do her job better. Poking, being a nuisance, being annoying. So I think we're looking around DF. I'm going to put him D, or put her D. I think that's fun. So Star-Lord, you might be wondering why Star-Lord is up high on a lot of the tier lists in this game. It's mainly due to the fact of triple strategist team compositions. When triple strategist is in play, a character like Star-Lord, who demands a lot of resources to have a lot of impact, truly excel because you have those triple strategists to keep pumping him with buffs, keep pumping him with heals, and just allows him to be a complete nuisance. That's why you see a lot of people put him higher in the tier list. I think people don't really understand why Starler is up there when you feel like he doesn't do that much. The character is, pretty good, but when he has all those extra resources pumped into him, he just completely dominates lobbies if you know what you're doing. For that, I think we're looking a maybe potential S tier category. For right now, I'll just put him A, and we can go back to that later. Moving on, we come to Storm. Storm didn't receive any love. I still think Storm is rather decent. We're looking at the C tier category, so I think that's fine. Scarlet receives a little changes from Season 5 to Season 5.5. We're looking at the D tier category, in my opinion, for that. Moving on, we come to Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is definitely S tier, or not S tier, but SA. Still in that realm of super strong duelist. The character still remains untouched from practically Season 0 to Season 5.5. He received some tweaks at the beginning of the game's life cycle, where he had the infinite ammo. His primary attack was a little bit different, but since then he just seems to get buffs after buffs after buffs. So the character is there feeling power creeped and is still definitely one of the stronger duelists in the entire game. Moving on, we come to Wolverine. Wolverine is one of those characters that is very interesting to me because Wolverine, yes, he can excel. He goes in, grabs that enemy player, brings them into your team, gets that pick. But after that, you usually swap to a different duelist. You usually only go for that first engage to try to get the kidnap and swap. So I'm looking more at C tier category. I don't think he's insanely good. It's mainly because you have a character like Angela, more HP, who does, his job a little bit better. And Bucky also kind of does Wolverine's job of getting the hook onto the enemy, pulling them into your team. Whereas Wolverine, you have to go in, grab the enemy, and bring him to your team. It's kind of in the same play style of grabbing that enemy, pulling them in, but this is kind of what we're looking at. From there, we're looking at Mr. Fantastic. Now, Mr. Fantastic did receive some changes here and there. I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's the worst. I think we're sitting around the D tier category. Of course, it could be definitely changed, in a little while, but we shall see. Human Torch from Season 5 to Season 5.5 got some love, so he got a little bit better. Definitely does a lot more damage. I think we're looking at B tier category. I think Human Torch players should be pretty happy. Yes, he's not the same as he once was, but previously he was completely broken. You can't deny it. He was probably the best duelist in the entire game for a little while. They nerfed him. He wasn't as good anymore. They buffed him up a little bit where he retains some of that power, but he isn't like that super strong, lobby takeover type of character. Now we're looking at that B tier category. Moving on, we come to Phoenix. Now, people could say that the character was nerfed. Yeah, the character got changed, but that doesn't change the fact that the character is still completely strong, completely busted, in my opinion. Since the release of this character, still an S tier character, still a character you're going to be seeing all the time. And you might be wondering, this character got nerfed to the ground. You can't do the Beyblade tech, you can't do this. That doesn't change what you get from the character. What you get from the character is a ton of utility, a ton of damage, and just the pressure to do a whole lot. So we're looking at the S tier category still. Then we come to Daredevil and Blade. For Blade, I think he's on the lower end. I don't think he's F tier category. I think we're looking more at the D tier. I think that's fine. And then Daredevil, this character still remains untouched, still remains broken. So we're looking at the S tier category. Those are my duelists for now. Of course, we'll change later. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, moving on to, we have our strategist section. This section is going to be a little bit crazy, where we see a lot of changes. But overall, a lot of the strategists are rather strong in this game. So let's talk about that. So Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock, I think falls down quite a bit in tiers because in this current meta, where we have Gambit and you have all the speed and stuff, a character like Adam Warlock kind of falls down because he just doesn't have the same mobility as characters like Invisible Woman, Gambit, Rocket, Loki. He doesn't have that mobility factor. Adam Warlock's biggest strength is mobility, which is a little bit sad because he flies in comics and everything. So he is definitely on my lower priority list for the most part. I think we're looking around the B tier category, at least for me. Then we have Cloak and Dagger. I don't think Cloak and Dagger is as good as she previously was in previous seasons because, again, we're looking for characters with super high, fast-paced abilities. And the most part, we're seeing characters that dominate in a higher elo of Gambit, Loki, and Invisible Woman. That's kind of like what you're always playing. So I think Cloak and Dagger falls down pretty hard. Then we have Jeff. I still think Jeff is a rather good strategist. I think we're looking at the same tier as B tier with Adam Warlock. Now, there wasn't necessarily any major changes to the character. It's mainly to the fact that the meta shifts. There's other strategists that are a lot stronger, a lot better, so he just kind of falls down. Of course, that doesn't mean this character is weaker per se. The character is still strong, but the meta kind of forces characters out of their, previous tiers. Then we have Loki. I think Loki, honestly, is sitting like S tier again. I think we're back to Loki being extremely strong. Luna, I think Luna's A, even though like she still is an insanely good, strategist, duelist, whatever you want to call her actually. But I think she's looking more at the A tier because I think like, another main strategist is definitely just a better pick. Then we're looking at Mantis. I think Mantis is also in this A tier. Not necessarily receiving any change, but still a very good strategist to be playing. Rocket, I think Rocket's sitting in A tier. He got some changes, and honestly, he's still a very solid strategist. Now, Invisible Woman got some insane buffs back in Season 5 that made this character just so strong, so I think we're sitting on the S tier category. Ultron got a second drone, which is a major game changer, and I'm a big Clanker enjoyer. So, I don't think he's S tier. I think he's still extremely good, but I think we're looking more at the A tier. You see the trend, how certain characters kind of remain in the same area per season. Gambit is S. Yes, he received some changes, but this character is so strong. It's not necessarily how the character is played. You might see not the best Gambits, not getting the best scores, but the idea is just the amount of utility that he provides to his team is just too great to pass up on. It's back when Mantis was meta, super meta, and was like the most strongest character in the entire game. People were playing her not necessarily because of the healing or anything, but picking her because of the damage boost she gives to her teammates. It just allows the rest of her team to perform extremely well. That's also kind of with Gambit. He provides a ton of utility for his team. Healing, cleanse, anti-heal to the enemies. His ultimate is extremely good. You're getting your ultimate faster, you're moving faster, getting a little bit of a health boost. This character is just insane. From the amount of times I've played him, he's just way too good to pass up. But this is kind of my tier list that I'm rocking with for Season 5.5. Of course, you can have a completely different opinion, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you wanted to change something, what would you change? The video doesn't have to be disliked just because you disagree. You can just tell me what you don't like. But anyways, hopefully this video has helped you in any way, shape, or form. If it has, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.